Welcome everybody to our webinar today here at Quantum. The idea of today's webinar, are you looking for a Goldilocks screen size and exploring mid-size magnifiers? The idea behind today is to have a look at an ever-expanding array of electronic magnifiers that are in as we say, mid-range, so they're somewhere between a handheld portable, really portable device that you might be able to take shopping and whatnot, between that and a big desktop size device with the big 24-inch screen. So there's quite a lot around now that are just that mid-size. So Rob Drummond, our senior low vision consultant, is going to be talking to us about and showing some of the different options there and how they might be useful for you if you've got low vision. So, and for those of you who might not have spoken to us here at Quantum, we're an assistive technology company and have been around for over 35 years. And we're a national organisation. We've got offices in Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane, and hopefully shortly in Adelaide. But we have got consultants around the country and can help. So yeah, we've got a whole range of equipment for people who are we've got low vision and blindness or a print disability of any kind. So I'd like to just start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land from which this webinar is being presented, and pay our respects to any elders past, present or emerging. And here we're on sort of the border of the Darug and Gurungai country here in New South Wales. So just a bit of webinar housekeeping. Your microphone will be muted during the webinar, but there will be time for questions at the end. If you do have any questions, please put them either in the Q&A area, which you can reach using the tab key, or click on the Q&A section on the toolbar, or use the chat, which the keystroke for that is Alt+H if you're a Windows user, or Command K on a Mac. And if you've got any technical difficulties, you can also use that option. We're recording the webinar and it will be available afterwards. And I have enabled live captions, I'm hoping. So yeah, hopefully people can follow along. So just a bit of an overview today. So we've got this little introduction, and then Rob's going to be presenting and demonstrating the electronic mid-size magnifiers, the Goldilocks ones as we're calling them. Not too big, not too small. And then we'll have time for questions, and then we'll show our contact information. So over to you, Rob. I'll stop sharing.
Thanks, Beck. Just checking I'm not muted.
No, you're not. We can hear you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, as Beck said, we had a couple of technical difficulties, so hopefully we've overcome those. So welcome and thanks for attending today. Thanks for showing interest. Yes, what we're going to do today is explore what Beck has described there as this Goldilocks range, the devices that are in between the big and the small. But look, everyone knows the Goldilocks story. 3 bowls of porridge, tries one, it's not quite right, tries the other, again not quite right, tries the third one, and got it right. That was the one that she preferred. When you're choosing a magnifier, there's really no difference. It's very easy to get caught up on, oh, that one looks great, I'll have one of them. It might look great, and yes, you may end up with one of those, but before you make a decision, it's always good to have a look at everything else that's available for you. So that's what we're going to do today. And just to sort of fill the picture in how that might happen, we've got showrooms, as Beck described before, in Thornley here in Sydney, Spring Hill in Queensland, Mount Waverley down in Melbourne. And you can certainly ring up, make an appointment, come in and see us there, or we actually spend most of our time out in the field with people, no matter where your location, be it work, school, home, whatever. So make good use of us in that regard. So today's about these mid-size electronic magnifiers. Screen size 10 to 13 inches. There are others that are sort of 14 and 17 and whatnot, but the mid-sized range is sort of around that 10 to 13 inch range. And I'm going to demonstrate just 3 of those for you today. But first, what I'd like to do is just frame those from the extremes, if you like, in terms of the size of these devices. So one that's 3.5 inches, and then one that's 24 inches, and obviously the 10 to 13 fits somewhere in between there. So just to give you a quick demonstration of an electronic magnifier, if you're not quite familiar with the terminology, everyone knows what a magnifying glass is, but electronic magnifiers a little bit different. It's got a camera sort of like your mobile phone, and it's got a screen, again, like your mobile phone, but these are purpose-built magnifiers. So just to show you what's happening here, this one is one of the large ones, 24-inch screen. I've got my reading material, in this case a fairly old newspaper, just pops in underneath there, and you can probably see that it's doing 2 things here. One is it's magnifying the print. The other thing is it's changing the contrast. So I can change the contrast to suit someone's vision, so the image is easy to see. And as I say, this is a 24-inch one, but here now is a 3-inch one, or 3.5 inch to be precise, doing exactly the same job. And again, you've got different colour schemes and whatnot available. One thing that's really handy with the electronic magnifier compared to an optical magnifier is the fact that you can vary the magnification. So I've shown you how you can change the foreground and background colour, the colour of the print, to make things perhaps more beneficial, but you can also change the size on these. Before I demonstrate size, set this up before just to make it a little bit easier. I'm going to put the newspaper and the little one up against this device here. Now, I understand that's probably a little bit hard to see. I'm just going to grab the camera, bring it in so I've got a bit closer view. What you might see there is that the print on the little one is about the same size as the print on the screen, on the big screen. Now, the reason I'm doing that is to give you an idea of what the difference is between these various size devices and what you may want to achieve with these devices. So if you want to sit down and read a newspaper, a book, something like that, where you're going to be sitting down for, I don't know, half an hour or more, then something like this works quite well. However, it doesn't quite work so well when you're using one of these smaller devices. And the main reason for that is that you just don't get the field of view on a small device than you do a big one. So if you're going to read even a newspaper column like this, you've just got to slide it to and fro as you read each line. So you can imagine that's quite laborious, but it's also not that easy to read because you've got to keep track of everything. Now, again, back to this example where the screen, the print size on the screens, both of these screens is the same size, but here I've got the full width on the screen of that column. And that means I can sit back and I can read this quite naturally without the need of sliding the magnifier to and fro across lines of print. So a lot more comfortable and certainly a lot more fluent for reading than it would be the little one. So what good's a little one? Well, the good one, these are great because, you know, that little shirt pocket, you could pop one in there, pop it in your pocket, your purse, handbag, or whatever, and you could take this shopping. And nice to be able to pick up a can or something like that and see some of the fine detail that might be on that can. So dietary requirements, that sort of thing, you need low salt, you can check out that sort of detail. So that's really the difference between these things, horses for courses, or in this case, trying to find the Goldilocks thing that's not potentially the perfect device, but something that's good for the task that you want to achieve. So that's framing the mid-size.
Oh, sorry, Rob, you're on mute for us. Sorry, Rob, you'd muted yourself, or you'd got muted for a second there. Only the last couple of seconds, I think. So.
Oh, okay. So, not sure where you picked up where we ended off. But
the dietary requirements and things, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, if you're looking at dietary requirements and things like that when you're out shopping, maybe a cafe, menu or something like that, you can do something quite readily with that because it's pocket size. You can pop it in your purse or whatever. Works really quite well from that point of view. Whereas you're certainly not taking the big one shopping with you. So we'll now that you've got a little bit of framework, a little bit of background into what the biggest and the smallest is, we'll now put the ones that are in between into the picture, and we'll describe these for you. So the first one I'm going to show you is the Traveller. All these come with a carry bag of some description. So the Traveller here is a 13-inch screen. And just in terms of weight, it's about 2 kilos. And the way this works, and this is just again, a bit of newspaper. Just put that flat down there on the desk and put the device here. And just try and move that camera position a little bit. So what we're doing now is just bringing the or putting the magnifier on top of the page. We can now open up the device, and it just takes a few seconds for it to initialize its system, and we'll end up with the brand name, Goldilocks. So these were designed in the Netherlands, and here we go. So there we go. So there's the image of the newspaper underneath the device. The nice thing with this is, again, we can change the magnification. And if I change the size, that's about the same size print as I showed you on the little 3-inch one before. But now we've got the full width of the newspaper column. And this is perhaps one of the decisions that you need to be able to make. Showed you before on the 24-inch one, we've got the newspaper column at the right magnification. In fact, we've probably got 2 full columns on the 24-inch one. On the 13-inch one, we've got 1 and a bit. And that means that you can, again, sit back fairly comfortably and read. If you need to move up and down the column, so we've read this part, we then get to the bottom. It's on a little roller here, and we just gently pull that forward, and then we can read the bottom part of that column. If we needed to, and we were using this at much higher magnification, we still have the ability to move up and down as we were. Mm-hmm. But you'd notice now, hopefully you notice now, that the screen is actually narrower than the virtual size of the column. And on the Traveller, it's just quite an easy movement of the finger. I'm not pressing any buttons here, no magic. It's just literally moving the screen just so that I can pick up the extra part of the word or the words over on this side. Mm-hmm. So there's a little bit of movement, but not a lot. Again, coming back to the big one, at that magnification, you're certainly getting still the full column width on the screen. Mm-hmm. And again, if you wanted to read the rest of that column, you just roll this down. So that's really one of the nice things about this, is the fact that the screen is moving on the stand that's sitting on the newspaper. It does scan across, if you like. You can look from one side to the other of an A4 sheet of paper, so therefore a magazine or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a matter of rolling it around to read the article, whatever it is that you're trying to read there. So that's the Traveller. You notice that I've demonstrated with something that's flat. Magazines are okay. It's a little problematic with books, but with a book, there is an optional stand. So this one here is on that stand, and what's happening is that the stand is holding the whole device above the table. So if I had a book, I could get the book, I could open it up, flatten it out, and put it in underneath there and then read my book. So it actually works quite nicely in this regard if you do want to read books. A lot of people might have turned to audio books, but if you do want to read a book, you might have a book on your shelf that'll never be an audio book. This isn't a bad way of doing it. That one's called the Traveller. So leave that one over there for now. So the next one I'm going to show you is a device called the Clover Book. There's two versions of the Clover Book. I won't go too much into the more complicated version for now, but what I'm going to show you is the Clover Book Lite. And again, you saw it comes in a case. You can carry it around like this. The screen is really quite solid there, and in behind, very well protected. And you just fold down the platform, pull the screen forward, and then we turn it on. So you can see that the I guess in engineering terms, what the form factor of these two devices between the Traveller, the last one, and the Clover Book Lite is quite different. The ability to sort of just pick this up, whether you use the handle at the back or not, the weight's about the same. This is about 2.5 kilos. The screen's a little smaller, about 12 inches, but look, the job that it's doing is quite similar. So there we have the ability to magnify the print. And again, even on the 12-inch screen, that size print compared to what we started with originally on the little 3.5 and the 24-inch is the same. So again, we've got the width of the column of newspaper. We have the ability to change foreground and background colours to suit. You can see probably some of those colours changing there in the screen now. And if you've just noticed, I've been able to use some gestures on the screen as well. So these are a touch screen, and you can change magnification quite quickly like that. With the Traveller, we move the screen. So from side to side, if we needed to get some more information to the left or the right of what we can see, we just move the screen. In this one, we have to move the paper. So in that regard, it's probably not quite, if I'm making a comparison, hate making comparisons because it's really up to you, the user, to make your choice. But if I'm making a comparison, I would say that the Traveller is better for reading. If you do need to scroll side to side for any length of time, purely because of that nice rail that it's on. It just keeps everything nice and straight on the screen, whereas here it takes a bit of practice to actually keep the line of print in a stable position as you scroll it from side to side. But as you can see, it still does a similar sort of job, just in a slightly different form. So at last, the three mid-size ones that we have, and we've got a few more, but this is just a bit of an overview. This one's a little bit smaller. So a Traveller was 13, the Cloverbook Lite 12, and this one's a compact 10. So all of those refer to screen sizes. Obviously a lot smaller, lighter, less than a kilo. This one's got a little fold-up stand. And what you can do with this one, you put it down on the page, or for that matter, a book like this. I'm just turning one. So it comes on nice and quickly. And here we can do the same as we could with the Cloverbook. We can actually change the size of the print on the screen, or we can tap the screen and then we have the ability to use the on-screen buttons as well. So quite a handy little device. Certainly a little more portable than the other two. And again, depending on how much magnification is required for you to do the job that you need to do, that print is a little bit smaller than the print we started off with the other two devices. So what that means is that we're not quite getting the same field of view, the same magnification field of view that we get on the slightly larger screens. But I guess here we've got something that's a little bit more portable. It just depends on your own circumstances. The other thing you can do with this one, we have the ability, it's got a second camera. And the second camera comes up from the side here. And what that does, it gives us the ability to potentially read things over here. We bump up the magnification. We can still use that. We can also do something a little bit different in that we can reduce the magnification. I'm just going to pick on something slightly smaller. And you might find that even after a while of reading this at whatever size that you've got it on there, maybe you're experiencing a little bit of fatigue. Your eyes are getting a little bit sore. You're getting a little bit tired because of the effort that's required to actually do this task. So what we can do with this one, with this secondary camera here, we reduce the magnification and then tap the screen and we can do this. You can hear it's taken a picture. What it's doing now is processing that picture and it's lifting the text that it's seen and it's trying to figure out what that text is saying.
Page 19. To a broad-based M&A recovery, the Abisab Miller deal is an extreme example of that, but it's true across pharmaceutical.
Right. It's starting to read, not from the paper, but it's, if you recall, it took a picture of the paper, it's processed that information, and it's applied a speech engine to it, a speech synthesizer. So what it's done is then displayed it on the screen, and I'll just hold it up closer to the camera for you. You might just be able to see that it's highlighted a word. Mm-hmm. And as it reads, it actually highlights the word. And that's not necessarily so that you can actually see it. It's there so that you might see the box and know where it's up to on the page. So if you see that highlight, down the bottom right, you know that it's pretty much nearly finished the page, and that's what it's there for. You can also still magnify in this mode as well. So I'll just start it again.
Industrial transactions where there's a lot of synergies. It's not so much the fine line, smaller transactions. However, I think that will come into your course. Private equity have been very inactive, despite them all having a lot of dry powder, driven by interest in infrastructure and utilities, inbounded.
Okay. So it's this one's the compact 10, and as you can see, it's got some added functionality. So not just a magnifier, but also the ability to listen to printed, not handwritten, bits of information as well. Now, I mentioned before there's different versions of the Clover Book. The one I showed you was the Clover Book Lite. There is another version which is called the Clover Book Pro, and it does quite a similar job in turning text to speech than the Compact 10 does. So quite similar, but just in that form rather than this form. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to discuss about these things, in fact, I'll discuss it in terms of all the devices that I've shown you today, again, including the 3.5 and the 24. So if I wanted to write something on one of these larger devices, it's pretty easy. All I do is pop my hand in underneath, and you can see there that I've got a nice large picture of the pen and my hand, and all I have to do is coordinate and then start writing. I can do similar with the little one. It's a little bit harder, but what you would do is possibly do it this way. It's a little cumbersome, but you're probably not going to write your memos with something that small. If you are going to do a lot of handwriting, things like that, you're probably going to do it with one of the devices that can do it a lot better. But if you would, I don't know, for example, down the bank and you just needed to sign a slip or a form or something like that, you could possibly do it like this, and quite successfully, nice and portable. With the Compact 10, it's real easy. This camera here means that you've got good ready access to what you're doing. So everything's nicely square on there. I've got a good view of what I'm doing. I'm not sure you're picking that up exactly on the screen there.
Yeah.
Probably not too bad. And you can also glance off to the side just to get a bit of relevance of where your pen is in relationship to the actual page. And now what you're doing is looking back here on the screen just to make sure that you're filling in the boxes correctly. And that, when I say boxes, it could be a Sudoku, it could be a crossword, or it could be a form. It doesn't really matter as long as you've got 2 points of reference. We find that can be really very efficient for writing. So that's the Compact 10. When you don't want to use that camera, you just pop it out of the way. Then it just returns to its magnifier. While we're talking about it, that's how we make sure that I'm on time. It's got a little clock in there as well.
Yeah.
So the Clover books, similar sort of thing. Here we've got the ability to manipulate it, but you notice here, having a bit of trouble getting my hand underneath, let alone the pen. The pen hasn't made it yet. So what we do there is just pick this up a little bit. I can still see from this viewing angle what's on the screen, and now there we are. I can now see magnified on the screen so that I can fill in those boxes. Coming back to the 2 points of reference, like I did with the Compact 10, it's the same here. You've got 2 points of reference. I can see the detail here, nicely magnified on the screen, or I can look just underneath, and that's about where I can look down at where my pen is. So I get relevance of the page by looking down on the page. Can't see the detail, but I can when I'm looking on the screen. So that's quite nice, even though you need a little bit more manoeuvring, but it works pretty well. Often hear people saying, oh, but I'm left-handed. With the Clover book, it doesn't matter, left or right-handed. Same result with the big one here. Same result with the little one for that matter. All you do is obviously swap hands. Excuse me. With Compact 10, it's a little different. And again, I'll come back to the comment I mentioned before, where you're maybe not going to write your memoirs, but maybe you just need to fill out a little form or something like that when you're at home. As I say, it's a little cumbersome. I feel for left-handers. I'm half left-handed, but you're not going to write like that. I guess you could, but you're not going to do much. So perhaps what you're going to do is put this on a bit more of an angle. Get your hand in underneath here and fill out whatever form. Not ideal, but if you just needed to write a little shopping list, half a dozen items or something like that, maybe it's going to work for you. The one device that doesn't really lend itself to writing at all is the Traveller. It is possible, again, if you're left-handed, you could get in there, and a lot of left-handers write with the wrist sort of curled over like that. So left-handers might be able to actually use this fairly well, because it's almost a normal position for them. You might want to perhaps turn the whole thing on a bit of an angle to improve that positioning of the wrist, but quite possible. People who are right-handed are probably going to struggle a little bit because they're not used to holding a pen like that. But again, with a little bit of training, turning the screen on a bit more of an angle to make it more comfortable, perhaps that's a possibility. So there you have 3 mid-sized devices. We talked about Goldilocks. Goldilocks found one that was just right, but all she was hungry. She just needed something to eat. Now, when we're reading, where do we want to read? We've mentioned shopping, we've mentioned food packets. How about those medication packets and instructions and things like that we might need to read at home? And they could be in the bathroom, the bedroom, family room, kitchen, anywhere. Or we might want to be doing lots and lots of reading. So that's why there is a variety of devices available. And these days, there's choice. And I guess that's what all this is about. Goldilocks, again, simple, just had one thing she needed to do. She wanted to overcome a hunger. She got the one that was just right in the way she went, but she still tried 3 before she got there. So what we're suggesting is that to overcome whatever difficulty you're having with reading, you've got to try and figure out all these things. So what are these things? How much magnification is required? Where you want to read? And the volume of reading that you want to do. And volume's important. If you don't have the need to read even a whole magazine article that might go, National Geographic, for example, it's maybe going to go for 3 or 4 pages. Maybe there's going to be, lots of graphics and lovely pictures. The big one looks really good for National Geographic. But if all you want to do is, read a food packet here and there, then maybe one of the smaller ones works well. But if you're somewhere in between, want to keep in touch with your bank statements, your bills, whatever mail's coming through, occasionally read or write a greeting Christmas card, something like that, maybe the mid-size fits in there. But everybody has got their own ideas of what's acceptable to them in terms of a device. Certainly there's a price difference between them, and it's not that, well, the smallest is the cheapest and the biggest is the most expensive, but the bits in between, it doesn't necessarily follow that 5-inch and the 6-inch and the 7-inch is progressively more expensive. You'll find that there is a variety of prices and sort of at different levels, depending on the screen size and the functionality of the device. But anyway, so that's the mid-size, and you're seeing either end of that scale as well. So I hope that's been important and useful information for you.
Okay, thank you, Rob. So, yeah, just bear with me. We'll now have time for questions, and I will show my screen again. Oh, let's have a look. Sorry. Let's try that again. Okay. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so if anyone's got any questions, please do put them in the chat. There were some that were submitted before when people were registering. So I'll just bring those up and put those to Rob so we can answer those. One person asked, could these types of magnifiers be used to read a computer or a TV screen? Now, I suppose not really very practical.
That's the short answer.
Yes.
Yeah. So look, let's just talk a little bit more broadly about what you're trying to do there. So the TV thing, I'll revert to our previous webinar on a thing called the TV Buddy. That's again, without trying to make any definite recommendation or preferences, but that's probably one of the better things to watch TV with. To look at a computer screen though, what you're doing with any of these devices is magnifying the screen. I'm not talking here about what's on the screen, what's displaying, in this case, the text. What I'm talking about is the structure of the screen. So everyone's heard about pixels and things like that. So pixels are these little light bulbs that go on and off, different colors and whatnot, to show what's required. When you magnify a screen with the print on it, that's exactly what you start to see. So the image isn't as clear as it is currently now if I'm trying to magnify that with a different magnifier. And even with a magnifying glass, it's probably a little better. But with one of these, you'll find that the image does become quite pixelated and not clear. Having said that, if you're potentially down at the ATM and you're trying to see some detail, then maybe that is better than nothing. Maybe that is better than a magnifying glass. So generally, no, they're not great for doing it, but perhaps it's the device is to hand and it's just going to do that little job, and maybe that's good enough.
Yeah, and we do have software for magnifying the whole screen and using the computer as well. Yep. So yeah, if that's what you need, then yeah, we can talk further with you. Okay, somebody has asked, is this equipment suitable for people with macular degeneration and cataracts? Absolutely.
Yes.
So
all right, try and keep this really short. So the advantage of this sort of thing, in general, for vision impairment, I'll answer the specific thing, macular degeneration with cataracts in a moment. The reason why these things work is that if you had an experience of trying to use a magnifying glass, when you do have low vision, you need to have the most constant image possible to be able to see it more readily. So with a magnifying glass, if you move it to and from a page or even sort of side to side, what you're doing is, by moving it in and out, you're changing the magnification level. And that may be an advantage for you. What's not an advantage so much is when you're keeping the paper still and moving the magnifier across it, what's happening is that you're seeing distortions. as the print sort of comes and goes across the magnifying glass as you read. So you're not actually getting a very clear, constant image. That's constant. The only thing that differs here is if I move the print under the camera, or if I change my settings. So what that means is that I can focus my vision, my attention on a certain part on these screens, and that's what I can see clearly. And that's the big difference. And that's very true for across the board as far as low vision is concerned. Macular degeneration, you need magnification. For other eye conditions, perhaps where you've got the reverse of MD, which affects the central part of our vision. So if you've got something that affects the peripheral part of your vision and you've only got a relatively small field of view to look through, perhaps you don't need magnification so much. What you need is the high contrast. So, that there might be okay, I can read that, but that high contrast there, just at the press of a button, means that that small field of view that I've got is now a lot sharper. So there's two parts of why these things generally work across the board. As far as MD and cataracts are concerned, so MD, you need the magnification. With cataracts, if anyone's not experienced those, a quick practical example, if you've got a dirty windscreen and you're driving into the sun, you can hardly see anything. Okay, the sunlight hits the dirt on the windscreen, just dissipates. So the image that you're looking at is really quite foggy. If you clean the windscreen, it's still glary, a bit uncomfortable, but you can see things a lot clearer. So getting rid of the glare, if you do have cataracts as well as MD, we've got a white background here, so lots of white on that screen in comparison to the black of the print. So if we hit a button, we've got the reverse now. So I can concentrate more readily on the white against the black background. So for someone that's got cataracts or other similar opacities in the eye, optical system of the eye, this sort of technology works quite well.
Thanks, Rob. Okay. Somebody's asked about the freeze option, which is on some of them, and why you might use that. Oh,
yep. Okay, so freeze image is literally it's the best one to demonstrate it on. Doesn't matter. So if you're shopping, for example, and you've got one of the small ones, perhaps you can sort of hold it up to a shelf and you go click, and all it's doing is stopping the image, much like it would on the back of your digital camera or in your phone or something like that. So it stops the image there, so that you probably can't see it at this distance, but what you can do is bring it back here and have a look at it. So that's one practical example. Around the home, back in the day when phone books were still a thing, people would look up a phone number. They again would stop it on the screen and away you go. So that's the advantage. So you don't need the material under the device anymore. You can see that image is just stuck there, and I've still got the ability to change the colours, and depending on the device, I may or may not be able to change the size as well. On the Traveller, no, because it is sort of a desk sort of option. But some of the smaller devices, like the 3, 5, 6, 7, and 10, yes, you can freeze that, and you can manipulate that image as well.
I was just thinking maybe if you're reading a recipe as well, you might freeze it on the ingredient you're measuring and then go to the next one. I don't know.
Yep,
might be an option. So something like that.
Yeah. So I think in general the take home with all the stuff is that there's it's like a mobile phone. Most people probably make a phone call on their mobile phones. They probably take a picture, maybe they do text message, maybe they do email, maybe they do this. There's a whole raft of things that the mobile phone can do. What's right for that person, though, it's fine. I've got plenty of clients who have a mobile phone. All they use it for is literally to call someone or send a text message. That's it. Yeah, possible of all sorts of other things, but they just don't do it. Other people are at the other end of the scale. They want to use it for absolutely everything. Same with these things. Just because it's built in there, you do not need to know everything about it. Keep it to the simplest things, if you like, and away you go.
Yeah. There's another question about whether they included in NDIS funding, and that would depend on your plan, but they can be.
Yeah. In general, as far as funding is concerned, NDIS, yes. These are not a tender item or on a contract list. Any device that's going to overcome someone's or meet their requirements and whatnot is generally funded. Most of these devices are covered also if someone has a gold card through Veterans Affairs. Someone has funding available from a home care package, for example. And there's a couple of other funding bodies around, but those are probably the three main ones. But in general, yes, everything is certainly I've talked about here. Everything in our catalogue pretty much is certainly available to NDIS participants.
Yeah, and it generally come under the assistive technology budget. So if you've got funding in there, then yes. And can any of these connect via Bluetooth to another device, for example, a phone or computer where documents may be stored? I think the Compact 10 you can save things on.
Yeah, so in terms of saving and pushing them out to something else, Cloverbook and the Compact 10. You can save, like if I wanted to save this image that I've taken here on the Traveller, I can save that and recall it later. And you mentioned recipes before, Beck. I've known people to put their 10 favourite recipes onto a device. They don't need to, grab the book. They can just, leave them up there. You can certainly do that with the Clover, Traveller, and the Compact 10, and some of the other devices we have as well in this sort of look of product.
Yes. Okay. So, and there was another one just on the Q&A, asking if really it would be a case of trying, but if someone's got very low vision, but can see objects close to their face, if they'd be able to see their new baby's face a little better with something like this, but maybe or pictures, photos. It would depend on, you'd have to try it really, but yeah.
Yeah, if people have got really poor vision, and I'm making very much a generalisation here. Let's say that the low vision is caused by a retinal condition. Most likely in this case, by the sound of things. But if you can see something close up, and I've had people who have been, less than 660 legally blind in both eyes, but they use a regular watch. And they say, oh, you're wearing a watch. Some people do it because it's a bit of jewellery and they've been wearing it for a long time. And they say, oh, yeah, I can do this. And at that, funny angle with their eyes sort of pointing off in the almost across the watch face, they've got talk about Goldilocks. They've got this little Goldilocks spot in their field of view, and they can perform that one little task. So, will any of these things help in that regard? Yeah, look, possibly. Again, depending on what task you're trying to achieve. If that's the case, maybe some of these devices that have got the ability to speak as well make sense. Because if you can read this for a bit, no matter how big it is, I'm going to make this ridiculously big now, but if you can read that up there, it's going to take you quite a long time to read any article. So there's a speech version of this machine, the speech version of Cloverbook Pro, and the speech version of the Compact 10, which might actually work as a better overall device for you, rather than just looking at solving a vision problem. Solves a vision problem, but it adds something to you that you may not have thought of using in the past.
Thanks, Rob. Peter from our Queensland office has also mentioned, the for people in employment or getting into employment, there is job access funding, which helps get funding, so your employers don't have to pay for equipment that you might, or you don't have to pay for equipment that you might need within the workplace. So if any of these are likely to help you, and with the Compact 10, you can also mirrorcast that onto another device. So on the screen, so that's another option. But I guess the message is also, by all means try them. So if you can get to us, or we can get one out to you to trial. So did you have any other remarks, either Peter or Rob, that before we wrap up? I think that's all the questions. Or has anyone got anything else that they're burning to ask? We haven't had a question about price on it. That's usually the one, but we can certainly get quotes to you. They're somewhere between 2,000 and 3.5, I think, most of these. So 1,000.
The mid-size ones, full disclosure, I guess, the mid-price ones, 10 to 13 inch, 2,000 to nearly 4.5. Very different there. As you can see, they're different in their term again, form factor, the way they look and the ergonomics and whatnot. But there's also differences in obviously the functionality, the ergonomics, how they work, their portability, etc. So it's different qualities, different manufacturers. It's just a matter of having a conversation with one of the consultants and working out which bowl of porridge is more suited to you for your job.
Thank you, Rob. No, that's been great. So I'll just share our contact information. If anybody should want to is interested in a demonstration or would like some further information, there is a lot of information on our website. That's quantumrlv.com.au, or you can give us a call on 1300 883 853, or email us at info, that's info, at quantumrlv.com.au, and our customer service team can put you in touch with your local consultant. So we can access people around the country. So thanks everybody for joining, and we'll get the recording out to people, and hope you found it useful. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Thanks.